Hi everybody. I'm I'm hoping this is working and that you can see me and hear me. That's always the hope when we start these things. It is Friday, March 12th. It's giving me a message. It wants me to customize my dashboard. I'm just going to go with that's okay. All right. Looks like it's working. Uh, Hi. I'm Arnold Mangioli for Grateful, Ready, Open, Willing. And tonight, March 12th, is the 1 year anniversary of the Broadway Shutdown. It's a very big event in the lives of most of us been through this past year and through that very extraordinary event. Uh, this weekend is daylight savings time. We're about to get lots more daylight. Next weekend is the official first day of spring, rebirth, blossoming, new, hope. And theater is slowly, cautiously, and smartly beginning to reopen the week after that, even a little before. Welcome to this season of rebirth, brightness, and light. Welcome to this new year. This is kind of a New Year's Eve. Uh, it's the Broadway Shutdown anniversary. Now, for some folks, New Year's Eve was celebrated on December 31st, and that was going into the new year starting January 1st. For other folks this year, people celebrated New Year's Eve on January 20th, the night before 1/21/21, which was termed the most anticipated palindrome in the history of the world, which I thought was quite wonderful. So tonight we have completed a year that was certainly nothing any of us planned for or even would have dreamed of when we started January 1st, 2020. And so if we think of this as New Year's Eve, meaning we have completed a year and a new year now would be beginning, let us turn ourselves, as we do in a new year, from the past to the future. Let's look back at what we've learned and what we can take from it. Let's think in terms of not why did this happen to me, but let's think in terms of why did this happen for me. So far, looks like it's going to be a pretty good new year. So is there something you're looking forward to? I'm going to ask you to type in the comments. I am looking at my other computer because Lindsay is not with me tonight. And you know that thing about how there's just somebody, whether it's a work relationship or a personal relationship, that without that person, you're kind of half of who you are. My staff is very much like that to me. So it looks like I can kind of see this with a time delay, which is really short-circuiting my head. Lindsay, I so wish you could be with me. But I think I'll be able to see comments if they're typed in there. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm definitely going to try to stay on top of that in any way possible. I wonder if it'll show me on this screen. So while I'm doing that and being my own tech director tonight, which we all know is not necessarily my forte, I would like to just acknowledge, first of all, it's been a rough year for those of us in show business, particularly in New York City, in the theater, perhaps rougher than for a lot of folks. Uh, and yet, we've made it through. Now, I also want to acknowledge that some of us didn't. We lost Terrence McNally very early on. We lost Nick Cordero and went through that heart-rending experience together as a community. More recently, Mark John Filipponi and Bill C. Davis, the playwright, succumbed to COVID just about a week and a half ago. So, with 500,000 people in this country, just in the United States alone, who have died from this pandemic, it makes perfect sense that, of course, our community was not going to be immune in any way, that we were going to suffer some of that as well. So I want to acknowledge that. If there's anyone, and it doesn't matter to me if you're listening to this live or if you're listening to it on replay, but if there's anyone you want to remember, anyone who died in the pandemic, and you want to say their name, please type it into the comments. Just say their name. Uh, it's a great way to acknowledge someone and proclaim some feeling for that person um, by acknowledging them just by saying their name. Uh, I want to acknowledge that we are not out of the woods yet. that there are currently several new strains of the virus, and we don't yet know the efficacy of the current vaccines against them. This week, the new cases in New York City were more than 50% new strains. So we don't yet know what that means. We're very hopeful that the vaccines will be wildly effective, as they seem to be against the original. But I want to acknowledge that we're where we are. I don't want to pretend like it's a new year and everything's great. It's all better. But it's better. So far, it's better. Uh, a year ago, on March 12th, the official announcement, I'll just get it and read it to you. The official announcement read, under the direction of Governor Andrew Cuomo, Broadway shows in New York City will suspend all performances immediately in support of the health and well-being of the theater-going public, as well as those who work in the theater industry. That's us. Performances will commence the week of April 13th, 2020. Well, of course, that quickly became May 31st, and then June 30th, and then October 5th, and currently it's through May 31st, and we don't know. But the anticipation that was pretty much spring 2022 is now being eyed as possibly as early as the fall, and we are doing a slow and cautious coming back in the days and weeks ahead. A month ago, it was announced that New York City would slowly reopen with this pop-up theater program that Governor Cuomo announced, 100 performances. This week, it was announced that some of those would be in Broadway theaters. So, okay, they're going to be concerts. They're going to be only one or two people on the stage. They're going to be no more than 100 people in the audience. If it's an indoor event, they can go up to 150 for outdoors. But in the Broadway houses that are being utilized for this, there will be up to 100 people. And there are other restrictions about taking temperature and various other protocols. But there will be Broadway performers on the stages of our Broadway houses. We haven't had that in a very long time. In a year. Tonight it's a year. And now we will have that again on a small, cautious, smart, slow journey back. Daryl Roth announced producing her show Blindness at her theater on Union Square. So that'll be 50 people per performance. It's an audio show, so basically every audience member is given headphones. It was done with some success in London. So Daryl Roth, love her. She's bringing it here. The Shed, the Hudson Yards Theater, that space, the Shed, and the Park Avenue Armory, which we all know is huge. They will be taking advantage of the new allowances in performance rules, and so they're what's referred to as flex spaces, meaning they don't have fixed seating, so you can sort of create out of the space what you need, and they have plenty of space. St. Anne's Warehouse falls into that category, and they also have the new air conditioning systems with the filtration systems. That's essential. We're starting slowly. St. Anne's has been doing art exhibits on the side of the building since the Black Lives Matter movement began to crescendo last June. That's not theater, but it is a creative expression. There's life there. Waterwell and several other organizations have used the stages at St. Anne's Warehouse to film performances. And Susan Feldman, the founder and artistic director, has talked about their coming back. Baltimore Symphony Orchestra has figured out a way to rehearse an orchestra. You know, each music session section has to sit closely together, but they have figured out a way that they will rehearse every other week and rehearse on Zoom the weeks in between, and they will bring people together cautiously, and they will be able to perform their symphony orchestra this summer. They will be doing a season. Tony, Emmy, and Grammy nominee and theater royalty, as far as I'm concerned, Andre DeShields, will be playing King Lear in, I think it's St. Louis Shakespeare Festival, June 2nd to 27th. They're having their outdoor summer season. We are expecting an explosion of outdoor activity this summer in performances. Don't forget, a year ago tonight, we were not prepared for this and no one knew what to do. We've now had a year to plan and to prepare for how we know with this pandemic, with coronavirus, outdoors is better than indoors in terms of safety. So we've had a year to plan outdoor performances. And among other magnificent news. I mean, really take it in. It's different. It's different than it has been for 52 weeks. It is different now, subtly, slightly, but so essentially and importantly. Lincoln Center has announced that all that outdoor space they have, where the plaza and the fountain are, and going back toward the library and that huge area outside that pond, they are building 10 outdoor stages for performances this summer. Live in-person performances are returning to the Park Avenue Armory on March 24th. That was announced earlier this week. That's even before the April 2nd official start date. But Social Distance Hall is what they're calling it. And Bill T. Jones, of course, who I've had the pleasure of working with for over 10 years and whom I just adore. Speaking of theater royalty, speaking of national treasure, Bill T. Jones is presenting Afterwardsness, I believe the piece is called, and he'll be followed by Stephen Hoggett and Christine Jones and David Byrne and Laurie Anderson. So they're doing an entire season at the Park Avenue Armory. The Armory's executive producer is Rebecca Robertson, Susan Feldman, Daryl Roth. It is International Women's Month. Can we celebrate these women who are bringing us back? That is so amazing. Uh, so I thank them from the bottom of my heart. Green Room 42, it doesn't stop. Green Room 42 is doing not only movie musicals being broadcast on their roof, but also live performances with our beautiful, beloved treasure Lilias White, Donna McKechnie, Erica Henningsen. They're having stars take their stages. Again, one-person concerts, but audiences gathering. All of these performances will have, a few things in common, but one that is notable to me is no intermissions. So the idea is there will be no intermissions for people to uh, congregate and mingle. So that's one of the new elements that we'll be dealing with. Charlotte St. Martin, who is the president of the League of Broadway Theaters and Producers, now called the Broadway League, was asked about the return of Broadway, which will probably be later in the process, right? Because those are very large houses and they're very expensive to produce in, and they're very small little staircases to the restrooms, etc. But she said, I'll read her quote. At this point, we're thinking early fall, perhaps early September. Broadway will likely be the last element of the New York theater scene to reopen. But the word now is after Labor Day, and everybody was looking pretty confidently toward I think it was the 22nd of, 2022 is what everybody was thinking was the spring of 2022. Um, it's a big step forward. Can we celebrate the triumph? I am looking for your comments, and I am so sorry, but I am here on my other computer with Facebook open, trying to see. Oh, maybe it'll tell me in the notifications. Let's see. Um, it looks like there's lots of likes. Help them see. Okay. I hope I'm helping you see. So apologies for the technological juggling that I'm doing here, but that's I'm going to get into that a little bit about the skills that we have developed and tried to develop here. All right, so here's the thing that it's good to acknowledge. This may not be the grand reopening of Broadway that we're ultimately looking forward to, but it is the very necessary step between where we are and where we want to get to. And it's a big step forward, and it's in the right direction. I talk with actors all the time, and they come to me and say, I'm so frustrated, I'm not booking anything, it's miserable. And I say, well, what's happening? Are you getting called back? And they say, yeah, I've got callbacks all the time. I say, well, then it's just a matter of time. Because getting called back is the necessary step between auditioning and booking the job, right? So occasionally there's someone who comes right out of the gate, auditions, gets called back, and books a job. But even for those people, in almost all cases, they eventually are looking for another job. And they audition and they audition and they get to the point of getting callbacks, and then from those callbacks, eventually they land a job. So let's not forget the middle step. Let's not forget what my beloved mentor Sark calls the messy middle. We're entering the messy middle as this next year begins, this new year. So my feeling about it is that if we keep a positive vibration about it, it's likely to happen sooner and it's likely to happen better. Can I get an amen on that? Would anybody like to amen in the chat for me? Uh, the chat, the comments. We have all these different names for these modes of communication we've developed. I also have put my phone on, and I usually have my ringer off because I. I'm getting some help. Jonah says to me, if you click the enlarge arrows on the live stream, the comments will appear on the side of the video. Oh, I just, I just love you, Jonah. I just love the people of this community. If I click the enlarge arrows on the side of the video, now where would that be? Jonah, could you come over and show me where that is? It's all right. How about this one? Let's see this. There we go. I did it. I love it. Hello, Donna Podolsky. Thank you, Jonah. Hello, Anthony. Hello, Jesse. Hello, Greta. Yes, it has been a year. Tony Award winner Greta Boston. You are never losing that appellation, my love. Your talent has been acknowledged for the ages. How we love you. Carrie Hart, you beautiful human being. You've been on my mind lately. Anthony, honest living, honest living. Yes, I love it. Yeah, Ellen, a year. And this is wonderful. It's like an onslaught of friends talking here. Yes, Jesse, I'm looking forward to staying open to the changes to come. Change is scary, but it always renews my spirit. It renews all of our spirits. Yes, and I see the names people are posting. Beautiful. Yeah, wonderful. Now I can see you. Now I can see your comments. You can ask anything you want. That's so great. Um, so I want to just point back to something in Buddhism. The Buddhist says there are four kinds of people. I mean, the Buddha says a lot of things and a lot of things about the kinds of people there are. But one of the quotes that I really love is there are four kinds of people: those who are in darkness and heading toward darkness, those who are in light and heading toward darkness, those who are in darkness and heading toward light, those who are in light and heading toward light. So if you subscribe to that for a moment and you go with that for just a bit, we want to be one of the latter two categories. We want to be heading toward light, whether we're in darkness or in light. So what I want to say to you is, if it feels like it's been a year of this is so hard, this is so difficult, these are still such dark times, okay, yes, if you feel I'm in a place of darkness, that's okay. But let's try to be heading toward light rather than darkness heading toward darkness. So it's okay to be in darkness. It's okay to feel the feelings of what this year has been. But let's look to the light. So that's why I'm thinking of this as New Year's Eve, for a new time of light. And the universe, the prophet Barbara Streisand says, at the moment of commitment, the universe will conspire to assist. And look what we've got. Daylight savings time is going to be 24 hours from now. It'll probably still be light outside. Um, how amazing. Spring, all of the light that's coming into our lives. The lights in Broadway houses coming back on. So even if we're in darkness, let's look toward the light. I also think it's good to acknowledge the gifts of this past year. I know there's been a lot of pain and a lot of heartache and a lot of difficulty. For some of us, there's been this inertia of like, I don't even know what to do. But there have also been gifts in all of this. So what have we gained? Feel free to put in the chat now that I can see it. Alan, you beautiful man, hello. And Anthony, only four. Yeah, there's probably more kinds of people than that. But we as an industry have gained technological advancements in music and in live streaming. I recently cast a demo recording of a new musical, because that's being done through Zoom technology, and learned that there are new technologies that, with Skype and with Zoom, the accompanist playing and the singer singing weren't always in sync because of that slight delay with the sound back and forth. They've developed new technologies to have it perfectly in sync. Live streaming theater, it was a little bumpy at first, and look how much better it's gotten, and what a gift that is to have and for us to have learned to use. And it is likely that live stream theater and music are here to stay now, which is a very good thing because, hey, like you, I long to be gathered in the dark with strangers, sharing our experiences of laughing and crying and having our human stories told and experiencing them together. Of course, any of us who are theater people, we long for that. We miss that so terribly. But also, there are people who are not able to get to the theater. And the new phenomenon of live stream theater as a regular thing has made it possible for people who can't get out to live theater, but maybe it was the greatest joy of their lives, to now be able to enjoy theater in some form. Also, the ticket prices are mostly cheaper, and hopefully that will stay. The Black Lives Matter movement, social justice. Look what came out of this pandemic. Early on in June of last year, I guess, when after George Floyd's murder, when the Black Lives Matter movement began to crescendo and the Black Lives Matter Broadway movement came forward with several organizations, there was a good amount of talk of how if it weren't for the pandemic and people having time to listen, to really listen and to concentrate, and to do something, that it wouldn't have been nearly the powerful movement that it's come to be. And it does seem to me, from what I've observed, that the theater community, not just Broadway and not just New York, but the theater community at large, is listening and taking action. I've seen so many people of color who I know through social media, who I know personally, like in real life, but who I connected with in social media over this past year, who have announced new positions. Erica Bradshaw, shout out to you, heading is it the New Jersey Performing Arts Center, or maybe it's the Newark Performing Arts Center, but you're doing something out there that's just glorious. I'm so happy about that. Erica did one of our talks for, I think it was our talk for Pride last year. So the impact of that and the phenomenal and extraordinary shift that we've already started to see, now I'm starting to look forward to theater coming back in new ways. The Broadway Relief Project. Okay, some of you have heard me talk about this before. I'm seeing wonderful things. Anthony, appreciation for our friends, things we once took for granted. Absolutely. Damon, more frequent communications via video calls with his grandmother in California. Beautiful. Vicky, personally great to get the gift of time. I so agree. Oh my God, is there anything more valuable than time? So beautiful. Great to improve my filming skills. Yes, I've heard that from several people. A lot of actors have talked about that, how that's been one of the great gifts because they never would have been motivated to do it. And now they've gotten really good at it. To which I say, come see me. I need help. Carrie, one gift, getting more in alignment with my artistry and the kind of artist human I want to be in this industry, in this world. Yes, beautifully, beautifully stated. Yeah, new dreams, new possibilities. It's funny sometimes what it takes to make something new happen in such a big way. I lived through the AIDS crisis. I saw that. I remember the community back then was very like gay men and lesbians. They were very separate. And then the AIDS crisis hit, and suddenly gay men discovered the lesbian community as the sisters they didn't know they had, and so many people were involved in the care of taking care of people we lost in that era. And I remember just thinking, did it have to take something as big as the AIDS crisis and so many people dying for us to come together as a community? And I remember at a moment in prayer once, and the answer came back to me, yes. And I thought, oh, so there's no question that there would be amazing gifts from this whole experience we've shared together. And one of those is expressed so beautifully through the Broadway Relief Project. Now, some of you have heard me talk about that. It's Jeff Whiting from Open Jar Studios. And early on in the pandemic, when there was that terrible shortage of personal protective equipment in the hospitals and for the medical personnel, he got a call from the governor's office, as I understand it. And it's like, you have this big studio that's not being used. And you have Broadway people who are not working, who are costume designers and wardrobe people and seamstresses. Can they all come to your studio and make the PPE that the hospitals need? And Jeff did that for 3 months. So this is a big announcement. Tomorrow, I think it's on the Playbill YouTube channel, but you can search it on the internet and find out. Playbill had a big article about it the other day. There's a documentary. What is the name of it? The Show Must Go On, of course, is the name of it. And it's about the Broadway Relief Project and what they did last year and how they provided personal protective equipment to so many medical personnel in hospitals throughout the New York area. And sideline to that, or rather, even bigger announcement, next Thursday, March 18th at 7 p.m., Jeff Whiting is going to be here, and we're going to do a Facebook Live together to talk about that. So I believe the documentary is screening for free as a fundraiser for, I think they're doing Broadway Cares, or it might be the Actors Fund. And you can watch it starting at 8 p.m. tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Saturday, March 13th. It's called The Show Must Go On. It's about the Broadway Relief Project. It's a 1-hour documentary about this amazing thing that to me is one of the most representative things about the magnificence and beauty of our community, that 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 I can even think of, and it actually happened. And I can't wait to see this documentary. And I have loved Jeff so much for what he's done. And I don't think we've ever met in person, but we have. I've written to him to say, you are my hero, even though we've never met. So I asked him if he would come and talk to us about the documentary. And so we're going to do that next Thursday, March 18th at 7 p.m. So please mark your calendar. I'll put it in the group as well. Okay, put in the chat, what have you learned? Because slowly and cautiously and smartly, we are coming out of this. We've done the year. We're now in a new year. So what do you want to take with you? Let's not forget what we've lived through and what we've learned about the power of government and how important that is. That, was it the moment where we realized that our hospitals did not have the personal protective equipment that they needed, and how wonderful that we in the theater community rose to the occasion to provide it. But wasn't that a moment of kind of shock? And and when we passed 300,000 Americans dead, wasn't that a terrifying moment? We're now past 500,000, of course. Remember that. Remember what that felt like when you vote for the rest of your life. I know I will. The current $1.9 trillion relief bill that President Biden signed into law today. Remember that, the extension of unemployment benefits and relief, financial relief, those additional checks that are coming to many of us in the theater community who have been struggling. Remember that. This information is a gift. More than that, your feelings are a gift. Our feelings going through this, the disappointment, the sorrow, the distance, the caretaking, the suffering, the death, all that's been so agonizing for so many of us and so many of our family members and families throughout this country and around the world. I remember in college studying theater, I learned about, in a course about New American plays, I learned the word Weltschmerz, the German word meaning world pain. That is the experience of world suffering that we express through plays. The empathy we feel for other people around the world, the people in Italy who were singing on their balconies early on in the pandemic, the people in India who are facing this with way less hospitals per capita than we have here. Empathy, don't forget that. Just want to see if there's anything else. Anthony says to sing every song. Yes. Hello, Flo. I adore you. I'm so happy you're here. There was an article in the New York Times today, and they asked a bunch of artists. I think it was like it was called something like 75 artists, one terrible year or something like that. And I don't think it was all terrible, because I think we learned a lot and there were gifts in it. But it was really interesting. They asked 7 different questions to the same 75 artists. And I want to share with you a section of what was said. Tracy Letts was one of them, the playwright and actor Tracy Letts. And they asked each artist, what have you made? And Tracy said, I've made nothing. On 4 separate occasions, I arranged my schedule with my wife Carrie so I could have 6 uninterrupted hours a day to write. All 4 times I emerged from my office after 2 or 3 weeks, rattled, defeated, feeling lousy about myself. My wife finally said, here's what you have to do. Read books, watch movies, cook dinner, and take care of our boy. That is what I've done. And while my family is my focus and my joy from a creative standpoint, this year for me has been a dust storm. The theater is my lifeblood, and I don't know who I am without it. Creatively, I'm lost. It's why I'm doing this interview. I'm guessing there are some other artists who identify. I thought that was so beautiful. I abridged that a little bit because it's a bit longer, but I wanted to share that with you. Then they asked all the artists, did you have any particularly bad ideas? And Amanda Gorman, the poet who read at the Biden-Harris inauguration, that beautiful young girl with that incredible voice and so much to say, her response to did you have any particularly bad ideas was, I'm writing a book and I can't tell you how many times I've started over from scratch, but the bad ideas lead to the best ones. Sometimes you have to break down to break through. So you see, what if even this threshold is a gift? This place we're standing at, whether we're standing in light and heading toward light, or whether we're standing in darkness and heading toward light. What if even the threshold, the doorway image comes to mind at this moment in time? This 1 year anniversary, it feels like a doorway. This whole pandemic has been kind of a portal for all of us to get to a new place, a new consciousness in our lives and in the world. So what if even this threshold is a gift? Maybe it's the greatest gift. The poet Hafiz says, this place where you are right now, God circled on a map for you. I may have shared that before in other talks, but it's one of my favorite lines, and I remember it often. I hearken back to it often because, yeah, sometimes when I feel so out of place and confused and how did I get here and what are we doing here, I remember that. You know, I don't remember my keys, but I remember that. Uh, uh, amen, Anthony. Carrie says, I was supposed to work as a promoter on the minutes. Yes. Coworker and I saw the final dress rehearsal, and Tracy waved to all of us in the balcony. That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that, Carrie. We miss you at Access Forum. Hey, time for a commercial. Currently, we're running Access Forum for Actors, which is a musical theater audition workshop, and we're helping people with online auditions because the online auditioning is going to stick around a while. So we've got 4 more classes left in this session, and it's on Wednesday evenings from 7 to 9 p.m. And as a bonus, if you sign up, even for a single class, Broadway music director will record an MP3 of your sheet music for you to use for your auditions as well as for the class. So there's still a 3 series that's left, and there are still single classes left. And the thing that's so great about it, in addition to really working on your material with my 40 years experience from behind the table as a casting director and offering you everything I can and seeing people transform and get callbacks all the time from their work with us. But the great thing to me is the music directors and I donate our time, and all of the money goes to the work of MCC New York, MCC Church, which runs, among other things, one of the largest food pantries for the homeless and those in need in all of New York, and one of the only LGBTQ safe shelters. So Anthony is in the class. Carrie's been there from time to time. Vicky, I think you've been there too. And it's a really wonderful experience. It's really positive and affirming, and I really encourage you. Accessforumforactors.com. I actually posted it in the group as well. And if you want to take a class, it's a pretty reasonable price compared to other casting director workshops. It's actually a bit less than what I've seen them, so it'll be more affordable for you. But also, 100% of what you give to that goes to the work of MCC. And also, if you are someone who really is struggling and you need food, contact MCC New York and their social service programs. It is one of the largest food pantries in all of New York for the homeless and those in need, and their clients, no surprise, but their clients have doubled over the course of the pandemic. So I encourage you to take advantage of that. So let's take a moment of reflection, and let's talk about gifts. What this past year has taught us, what gifts you've received from all of it. Let's think in terms of gratitude for what we have, our homes, our living spaces. It's very easy to say, oh my God, I haven't been out. I haven't been to a restaurant. I haven't been to the theater in a year. I'm sick of my home, but we have homes. Most of us, almost all of us, have homes, a roof over our head, a living space, families, friends, our creativity. Feel free to add in the comments. Anthony says, Evita. Uh, Thank you, Anthony says, so amazing. Sign up now. That Access Forum. Perhaps for you, this has been a time of retreat. Maybe it's collapsing rather than creating, sheltering in place in every sense, cocooning. That's okay. If that's what you need, then yes. Perhaps it's been a time of fitness. I've seen you. I've seen those people. I've seen all you folks who are like, oh, yes, I lost 80 pounds. I'm like, oh, yes, I found it. Uh, Danette Holden posted a picture of herself. She did her sister's fitness routine, and she's looking fabulous. And so many people have it. Tim Alex, you're just ridiculously gorgeous. All of you, you're just amazing. Christian Dante White, who's more beautiful than that man? So I love that. Those of you who've given to that. Jonah Robinson can stand on his hands. Uh, but you never had a day in your life where you didn't look great, so don't talk to me. Perhaps it's been a time of perfecting the raspberry scone, your raspberry scone recipe. Perhaps it's a time of organizing files and getting all that together, or scanning all your photographs for once. Perhaps none of it got finished. Abraham Hicks says, you never get it all done. Right? We're here to enjoy the journey. Perhaps it's about living through it. Hours on the phone with unemployment, filling out the pandemic relief paperwork for your business, perhaps figuring out your status as an essential worker, perhaps fighting necessary political fights, perhaps the fire that burns within Stacey Abrams for justice is perhaps inspired us to send postcards and do some of that work, and perhaps you voted, whether by mail or in person, and you changed the world. Perhaps you baked. I did. I baked. You've seen these videos. I baked. Perhaps you helped someone. Perhaps you had the courage to ask for help. That takes courage. It's a beautiful thing. The gifts are so often in what we learn, sometimes in what we do, and sometimes in the thing that we're inhibiting our response to do. Perhaps in the self-sculpting, like so many have engaged in body sculpting, perhaps you've been in a time of soul sculpting. I do believe this past year has helped us all to create more of who we are. One of you actually said that in the chat earlier. I remember when I asked my parents, when I first learned about the Great Depression in school, and they had lived through it. I figured out the years, and I was like, oh, they were alive. They were kids, but they were alive. And I asked them about it, and I said, what did you do during the Great Depression? What did Grandma and Grandpa do? And they sort of shrugged and said, they did everything they could. They did everything they could to try to make enough money to support us, and so that we'd have food. And I was like, that's not very colorful. Someday, someone from a future generation may ask us, what'd you do in 2020? You lived through the coronavirus pandemic. What was that like? And perhaps you can allay that kid's fear with your humanity, just by being fully present now to where we are and what we've been through and where we're going. And perhaps the person we've created of ourselves through these experiences, we can find the courage and the compassion to love that person. What do you want to achieve before things return to normal? I don't know there is such a thing. What is it we hope for in this new year? Another gift we have received or are about to is the ability to start where we are. There's that image of the doorway again, the threshold. A door to somewhere. Put it in the chat. Proclaim it. Speak it to the universe. Begin by proclaiming your vision of hope, your vision for yourself. And that goes for if you're watching this live or in the replay, proclaim your vision to the world. What is it you hope for yourself? What is it you hope for the world? And now, in this new year ahead, let us soul sculpt the future that we desire. Let us celebrate the change in the world and in us. Anthony says, Evita was the imagery of a doorway. Thank you. Yes, right. Of course. Doorway. Go, Patty. Lovely. Let us bring into the year ahead all those changes, everything we've learned, all of the gifts we've received. Let's love everyone and everything and move forward, perhaps more together this time than we have ever been with one another before. Let's move forward together and create the world of our dreams. Still feeling paralyzed? Want to know how to do that? So here's another quote from Abraham Hicks. Appreciation and self-love are the most important tools that you could ever nurture. Appreciation of others and the appreciation of yourself is the closest vibrational match to your source energy of anything that we've ever witnessed anywhere in the universe. Appreciation of others and the appreciation of yourself. Grateful. Grateful, ready, open, willing. Happy New Year. I hope that we will see you next Thursday night when we talk with Jeff Whiting about The Show Must Go On. And I hope you'll invite us into your lives. Grateful, Ready, Open, Willing is on Instagram, on Twitter. We have a YouTube channel. We have a Facebook page. We have this Facebook group. Please find us and follow us anywhere that you would like some positive reinforcement, because my view of the world is that we are so lucky, and perhaps we were born for just such a time as this. Thank you for joining me this evening, and I think that might be the end live video button. Jonah, call me again and tell me. Okay, it's a joy to see you guys, and I wish you so much, so well, so much goodness, so much of all the goodness that you deserve as we go into this new year together. Good night.